Welcome to GamesReport, where I give a report on the games I've played. The game that's up for discussion today is Triangle Strategy. Triangle Strategy is a tactical RPG developed by ArtDink and published by Square Enix in 2022 for the Nintendo Switch. It has a unique HD, 2D, mixed 3D art style similar to that of Octopath Travelers. And without further ado, let's dive in. Up first, story. Now, since this game is very story reliant, I will do my best to avoid any spoilers. So here goes. In the continent of Norzelia 30 years ago, there was a war named the South Iron War. The result of that war was to achieve peace through each country having authority over a resource. Present day, 3 countries reside. Glenbrook, think of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Azeroth, in charge of iron, and Hyzant, posh elitist cult leaders that control South. The game is mostly centered around Prince Serenoa, son of Lord Simone and Prince of the Woodford Domains in Glenbrook. Each country has their own different houses in charge of different things. I will only be going through the Glenbrook part for spoiler reasons. The royal family, made up of King Ragnar, Prince Franny, Prince Roland, and Princess Cordelia. House Woodford, made out of Lord Simone Woodford, Serenoa Woodford, are in charge of the military affairs. House Falks, Lord Landroy Falks, is in charge of agricultural cultivation. And lastly, House Tellior, Lord Silvio Tellior, is in charge of merchant operations, basically economy. In an attempt to further ease the tension between the different countries, Princess Frederica of Azeroth is to be betrothed to Prince Serenoa of House Woodford in Glenbrook. But things are not as they seem. Can the resentments of war really be put aside that easily? Can Serenoa rise up to his father's reputation? And how will your choices change the fate of Norzelia? And that's the hook of the story that I present to you. The whole story might feel overwhelming at the start, but I promise you, after cutscenes and dialogues, the whole story unfolds itself seamlessly. And the world of Norzelia becomes a joy to explore. New units are unlocked through taking part in character stories that sometimes pop up at the right hand side of the overworld map. And in these side missions, you get to learn about the story of side characters that aid you in battle. One of my favorite stories is of Narf Oparn, grandson of the Archmage Grandante, an aspiring mage trying to follow his grandfather's footsteps and let the world know of his accomplishments. It is nice to know that the world doesn't just revolve around the main character, but is also filled with other interesting characters, and these serves as light-hearted, refreshing stories to take your mind off the otherwise grim and warlike story that the main story indulges. It's rare to see side characters getting these kinds of attention catered to them in games these days. And let me tell you, it is honestly so awesome that I don't have to perform any fetch quests before unlocking these characters. Straight to the point, short stories telling me the backstory of the characters. Why can't more games be like this? This game is the only game that I've actually read through the notes and journals presented to me just because I was so immersed in this world. It is definitely one of the best stories in video games to date. Next up, gameplay. You control units in the grid-based system like Fire Emblem and XCOM. Each unit is of a different class, which makes each character feel different to the next. You also have access to use abilities, which comes at the cost of TP, turn points, which replenishes itself by 1 at the start of every character's turn. QP, Quietus points, are basically global abilities that can be used by any character, provided you have enough for the skill you are performing. Take note, these do not replenish and each skill is a once per battle use. There are also items that you can buy and use like HP potions and stats enhancers. Units can also be promoted and have their weapons upgraded once they are leveled past certain levels using coins and materials. This unlocks new skills and upgrades their stats. Positioning is a big part of this game's combat. Your character gets a critical hit if they attack an enemy from their backs, and if they were to attack from an elevated position higher than the enemy, like a tower, a damage boost is also applied. And if you attack an enemy sandwiched between your units, the unit on the other side of the enemy will join in for follow-up attack, which results in an additional auto basic strike. Each mission will have a different criteria, and there are no permadeaths. However, this game is not an easy one. Battles can sometimes even take an hour to complete. Proper management of position and your turn points is crucial for winning in later stages. So that's the combat side of gameplay. With this game being more story focused, it also has a story decision making aspect, reminiscent of that of Telltale games. Introducing the skills of conviction. At a major point of the story, big decisions will have to be made, and the choice of these decisions is up to you, as Serenoa, to convince your allies which paths should be chosen rather than the other. Prior to persuading your comrades, you have the option of exploring the location that you are at to further learn more about the issue at hand, which will then unlock more dialogue options during the persuasion phase. However, do keep in mind, even though an option is unlocked, it doesn't mean that it's the best option to pick. Different characters have different beliefs, and speaking to those beliefs will be what ultimately pulls their vote over to your side. One complaint I have with this is that with how much emphasis the game plays on its story, you can die here and be forced to reload an old save so you can try a different dialogue option to progress past the otherwise point of death. I feel that this defeats the whole purpose of the player choosing what they want. Granted, this doesn't happen often, but I would have liked to see how this choice would have progressed in the story rather than just death. Up next, sound. No complaints here from me. The soundtrack here fits like a glove. The orchestral music in the background as I peruse the shop or battle through the waves of enemy never fails to win my appreciation. I really enjoyed the soundtrack used in the encampments. It makes the otherwise mundane task of pre-battle strategizing an adrenaline pump for what's to come. To sum up, coming from not liking Octopath Traveler's lacking death story, Triangle Strategy is a welcome change. Everyone gets the attention they deserve, whether it's just a merchant in a shop or a mighty prince. All is included in this grandeur tale. I want to take this chance to praise the game for tackling racism and nailing it, making me feel emotional for fictional characters. The game succeeds in making me hate as well as love the different 2D pixel characters that exist in this game, which is more than what I could have said for the vast majority of recent games. However, in gameplay, I would have liked more combat mechanics to be better explained early on in the game, as I only started learning about the strategic placements of Hawks and other special units through buying and reading the notes in the shop, which normally players just gloss over. I would also have liked the game to feature more nuances for choices in the more major decisions. Hence, I rate this game a 9 out of 10. And that concludes my report on the game Triangle Strategy. And I thank you for your attention and take care.